Talk to us about leadership. Like, what kinds of leadership do you recommend?
It's funny how people by default, when we say leadership, they automatically think they have to be on an e-board at AMSA. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So is AMSA the only organization that every pre-med student thinks? And when I used to work at a DO school, it's all about SOMA or
I
pre-SOMA.
was in them.
Yeah, I know, and that's fine. That's amazing. I love AMSA. I present nationally, regionally for AMSA all the time. I love it. But a lot of people, that's all they think. If I don't make it to the e-board in pre-AMSA, I'm not going to make it to medical school. Not true. And not necessarily do you have to be the leader or part of the e-board. Now that's what they call it. When I went to school, it wasn't called that. But you're part of the e-board for a club organization. That doesn't show me leadership,
right,
at all. What shows leadership in an application is things where you take initiative. So you can never have been president of pre-AMSA, but in your application shown other parts of leadership. So for example, there's a lot of need in the community. Mm-hmm. And I've seen people exemplify leadership through starting initiatives. I had one student in particular that during the month of back to school noticed that there was a deficiency in, as far as a lot of kids that went to his church didn't have money for supplies. So he said, you know what, I collected money every Sunday at church, and he wrote this on the application over again. And he actually did come here. And I got enough money to buy 32 book bags, fill it up with 32 supplies, and then I handed it out to them. He wasn't part of a club or an organization. He just did that because he saw that there was a need. He wanted to help these kids be able to go to school, and there was a little bit of an underserved area. I mean, amazing. Yeah. That is a story. That is you taking initiative, you being a leader, even though you're not leading a meeting. Leadership is shown in, again, taking initiative and helping and getting others to follow you. So and he got people to donate money and help him pack the 32 book bags with the 30-something supplies and then hand it out. People that go, yeah, you know what, I just pick up food and then I take it to the homeless. That, again, shows initiative of leadership, because you're not waiting for someone to tell you, hey, by the way, there's homeless that are hungry. Can you help us? No, it's seeing that there's a need, taking initiative. That's leadership. So don't get discouraged if you don't get voted in to president of AMSA, so that you look like a leader.
And even if you enter the e-board, try to make something new from that experience.
Yes. Don't just write. Don't just be have a title. Yeah. Say, during my leadership, the year that I was at AMSA or any other organization, I did this. I restructured that. I initiated. And I know I sounds bad, but you want to be careful, because you also want to seem humble, but you want to make sure that you've done something, you've taken initiative and made some changes, not just, okay, I sat here, I led meetings. You're kind of more just facilitating a meeting. You're not really leading a meeting if you're not taking these people that are hungry to try to get into med school and make a change, and then getting them to that change and making that difference. So that's how there's just so many opportunities. Now with COVID, I heard people telling me stories about, I just needed to get out there and do something. So I helped with food banks. At the beginning, people were losing their jobs. I stood in line and deviated traffic at a testing site. I volunteered to do this. I just needed to get out there and do something, even though everything was shut down. And stories like that are now making their way into the application cycle, because people got smart. They got creative. They just couldn't sit and do nothing. And that's the type of applicant we want to get going.
A lot of people were messaging me about like what to do now in the COVID pandemic.
There's a lot.
Yeah, but there's actually a lot
to
do. There's not as much shadowing for other experiences,
but there's other things. There's other things, and we must put out there, Melisa, because we don't want to get sued. Because I know there's this thing on Netflix, the admission scandal. I don't want to get sued. So we do want to put out there that whatever you do, if you get out there, follow the CDC guidelines. Please stay safe. You wear your mask. We've been vaccinated. We're fine. But just make sure you're safe before you go out there and say, oh, I went out there and helped people with COVID, but I was told by the FAU people, and they forgot to tell me to be safe. They just told me to get out there. No. Be safe in whatever you do, but definitely get moving. Don't sit down just because things shut down. Because there were people, trust me, there were people that were doing things. And those are the stories we were kind of looking for in the application. We were like, ooh, who's done stuff during this pandemic to try to make a difference and help others that needed it?
Right. Next question will be, what are the don'ts or common mistakes in the medical school application?
So the biggest thing is you need to be honest. So don't try to over-embellish. Don't think you can make things up, or you shouldn't, again, because that's just not ethical. So don't over-embellish, and just the biggest advice is to just put it all out there. But my biggest don't is don't apply unless you're absolutely ready. don't rush, do things right. This, I think, has been advice that I've been giving easily since around 2008, is don't rush, do things the right way, not the rushed way, because the biggest mistake I see people do is apply when they're not ready. Yes, although I love pre-health advisors, some of them tell you that, oh, you should take the MCAT, or you're supposed to take the MCAT your junior year. You should apply your senior year. Yes, it was a thing for many years when med schools only really were taking or only looking at traditional students, meaning you went from graduating from your bachelor's May and then starting school in August. That's a traditional student. They had no gap. Nowadays, we're finding that those students were not as prepared, not as emotionally ready, not as mature to start medical school, not to mention that not everyone can do that, because not everyone can have the capacity to do an MCAT junior year while also balancing classes, while also maybe having other things to then apply as a traditional student.
Really
so what's
hard.
been the trend, very hard, is an influx of non-traditional students to med school. People are now taking gap years, and gap years used to be a bad word in medical school admissions because they wanted you, mind you, we're talking easily 10 years ago. It used to be a bad word because they wanted you to come right after undergrad, and that's not the case anymore. Now, our class the last 3 years has been mostly non-traditional students.
Right?
And then, when I mean non-traditional, again, it's not only that they took a year off, it's also non-traditional encompasses people that don't have biology majors, so maybe psychology majors, business majors, engineering. We were getting tons of engineering majors. That's really neat. And it also means career changers, people that already had a career and changed it. So, or people that have families. Those are non-traditional. So the bulk now of the applicants are non-traditional because they're taking some time off. So gap year is no longer a bad word. Because the word gap year has a bad connotation, I now use the word growth. It's a growth year. You're taking a year off to maybe solidify your application, to maybe, you didn't want to rush. You took my advice. You didn't rush your MCAT, so you took it when you were absolutely ready, which meant you had to take a year after to study, which is fine. But all of this I need you guys to put on your application. I need to know that you graduated 2020, didn't apply to 2022. What were you doing that year? Volunteering, hopefully, doing some community service, studying for your MCAT. That's a full-time job, if you think about it.
Document.
Document everything, including all the hours that you're studying for your MCAT. So again, non-traditional students, growth gap years are perfectly fine, but you need to be constructive with it. So don't rush. If you need to first get through college while doing some activities or extracurriculars or volunteering, then take a year to study completely for the MCAT without having to also take orgo and bio and physics and all this stuff, then do that. But don't rush it. There's no perfect algorithm. There's not a perfect applicant that do it your junior year, then do, because sometimes that doesn't work for you. So if that doesn't work for you, you don't do it. Even if it's the advice, I know this contradicts my fellow pre-health advisors, even if the advice contradicts what you're being told, if you feel you're not ready, please don't do it. Because then what happens is, and I know you wanted to talk about this, is now you've applied prematurely, when you honestly were not ready, when you didn't do as good as you could have in the MCAT, but now you have to apply because you have an MCAT score, and now you didn't get in. And now you're like, okay, I'm not over, I'm not done, I still want to do this, I'm going to try, and now you're a reapplicant. And now you're in a different set of issues or concerns that you can have, because as a reapplicant, now you have to do something during that reapplication year to prove that you've improved from your last application. You have to show us that you've improved, which will be more work than had you waited maybe that year, maybe 2 years. I've seen people wait up to 3 years and then applied with an amazing, solid application. Do not rush the application. Do not rush the MCAT. If you are not ready, you don't take it. It is not a test you take. I've heard this, which I almost fainted. Oh, I just wanted to see how it was.
No.
And then go back and study and do it again. No, you don't see how it was.
And some people do it in January so that they can have another opportunity in May to take it again.
No.
Do it when you're fully prepared.
Right, and your practice exams are already in a competitive range, like a 508. If your test practice are already a 508, it's been shown that your practice is always a few points lower than your actual. So if your practice is still a 508, unless you're happy with a 505, then no, you keep practicing, you keep studying until your practice is more like a 510 to 513. Because then a few points off is still a 508 to 510 from a 510 to a 513. So that's where you want to do it. Unless there's no rush. Med school will be here. Every year we will start 64 students. Other schools start 120. 150, 180, 200, and 250. Those are the numbers in the state of Florida. Every year, 300 now. There's a new med school in Florida. So we will always start classes. What won't happen is your chances. If you are a reapplicant, your chances get smaller and smaller as you reapply.
What about waitlist? What do we do when we're placed on a waitlist?
You wait patiently. Like I tell my 5-year-old, wait patiently.
Is there anything that you recommend to do?
You keep working, you keep doing, you keep being a
doing
med school applicant by continuing to do volunteering and community service. You never sit on your hands. Never. I know it's crazy because then you start med school and you have 4 years of more craziness and you start residency, but this is what you signed up for. If you wanted to be a doctor, you need to be ready for everything. You need to be ready to work hard non-stop because the reward at the end will be worth it. So, you
so
just
we don't
stop.
call you or email you more than...
My counterparts at other med schools will say no, do not call them. So I'm putting this video out there. Please do not call the other deans and directors of admissions in the state of Florida. They don't like it too much. I don't mind, and they all think I'm funny anyways, but
cool.
I don't mind. I've gotten, we're right now, so it's May of 2021. There are applicants that have emailed me every day, every week, a new letter of intent, and that's fine. I say thank you, good luck, and then I put it in a folder for later on if we need it, because we were going to review that application. I don't mind. I know you guys are anxious. I know you guys are nervous. Don't expect me to reply every day.
Yeah.
You know, this was a good one, or I like this letter more. I'm just going to say thank you and put it away. So I don't mind. And if you have real questions, or if you want to know how to update your application, because again, you haven't stopped. You got on the wait list, but you're still volunteering, community service. Ooh, you now published a new article, or you made it, you know, you're now doing something amazing. You registered maybe for courses and you did well during the summer. So we want to know if you have updates, but
and
it's
there's
okay
a place for updates in the application as well. So what makes a good personal statement? I know it's personal, but
that's a tricky one because again, there's no cookie cutter perfect answer. The best personal statement is going to be one absolutely perfectly grammatically
written well. Okay.
Yes, no word splices, no missed commas or anything like that. It needs to transition absolutely amazingly. It's hard to read if it's clunky, if your ideas are all over the place. So it needs to be concise and clean, transitions well. At the end of this day, it needs to tell us your story.
Right.
It needs to tell us why you, why medicine, why.
It might not be a dramatic story,
No,
but
it doesn't
it's
have to
your
be.
story. Yeah, people think that something out of the blue will
And
happen.
again, that comes from old admissions days where you needed to have someone in your family have a catastrophe.
Exactly.
And you had your aha moment from that catastrophe. No, let's not kill off las tias or your little aunts and uncles. Let's not do that if not necessary. You could just have this desire inside to want to help, to want to serve. You're selfless. You want to make a difference. You want to heal people. And you've worked your whole life towards that goal. That could be
and
your
don't
story.
rewrite your experiences, right?
No, because we can see that in the
Exactly.
AMCAS. You can talk about your experiences.
Bring
on AMCAS.
something else.
Yes. Your true story.
Right.
Your true story. Your experiences add to your story. So if you wanted to be a pediatrician, then yes, your experiences should show that you want to be a pediatrician, but your story should be why. Why a pediatrician? When did you have that moment in life? When did you start working towards that goal? Not talk back about the experience. You can mention it.
You can mention it briefly, yeah.
But briefly, because you only have so many characters, and we really need to read your story.
Exactly. Okay. So to wrap it up, I would love for you to tell us the key points, kind of like a summary of your advice for someone applying to medical school.
Of course, and I will end this the way I normally end any presentation I do when I am out recruiting and trying to inform as many prospective applicants as possible. And my biggest advice is you need to just apply when you are absolutely ready. Because the biggest question I get asked after a 30-minute or 45-minute presentation on admissions is, what can I do to stand out? What can I do to make sure I get into medical school? Well, make sure is a little tough of a word to use, but what you want to do to ensure you have the best chance possible that you're a competitive applicant is not rush. Is do things the right way, not the rushed way. That's what I've always been saying. And make sure you apply when you're absolutely the best applicant you can be. When you've done your absolute best in the MCAT, you've done as many hours of research, shadowing, volunteering, community service, shown leadership as you possibly can, and done everything you possibly can. That's when you want to apply, whether it is during your 4 years right after college, or whether you took a little bit of time to do some growing. You just want to wait and then put in that application. You know, prende una velita, pray, and just hope that you've done everything possible to be the most competitive applicant you can possibly be.
It's amazing advice. Thank you so much for
You're
agreeing
welcome.
to do things.
You're welcome. And best of luck to all of you. I know it's hard. Do not get discouraged. Do not get disheartened. I say that to all my applicants. You keep trying. If this is what you want to do, if you want to see yourself at med school, hopefully being a medical professional that helps people, that heals people, you do not give up. You keep working very, very hard. And I will hope to see your application here at the FAU College of Medicine or anywhere. And best of luck.
And if you have any other questions, drop them down below in the comments and I'll have them. Maybe we can do a follow-up video.
I love that. I love that.
So yeah, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.
Good luck. Bye-bye.